Well, hello. Welcome to Kernels of Truth, brought to you by Progress Kentucky. We have a wonderful episode for you tonight. We're going to be talking about what the General Assembly has been up to for the past week or so, as well as some more useful actions from our governor. Kimberly is going to bring us the news we need in under 5 minutes. Then we'll talk with Bruce Maples, publisher of Kentucky's progressive media platform and our new content partner, Forward Kentucky. We're going to close out with our call to action and events calendar with some great events coming up your way. So stay tuned till the end for that. But first, are you ready to help turn Kentucky purple? We know our Commonwealth has some work to do if we're going to beat back the red wave of bad politics and policy from the GOP supermajority in Frankfort, from the efforts to put Frankfort and Paducah in the same congressional district, to keeping teachers from telling kids anything about MLK except for his dream. We need your help. If you want a Commonwealth that works for all of us, join Progress Kentucky. It is easy. Just follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and wherever you spend time on social media. Make sure to like, share, and comment on our content. Help us in the algorithm game. If you like what you're hearing on Kernels of Truth, give us a thumbs up, leave us a review, or share out the show. In fact, if you're watching right now, just hit like. Give us a like, give us a share to your political friends. Tell them you need to be watching these guys because who knows what they're going to say next. But let's check in with our co-hosts, find out what they're going to say next. Of course, who you are, where you are, what does your protest sign say today? You can share that in the comments. If it's clever, if it's catchy, or if it makes sense, we might just show it on the screen because we've got that technology now. So I'm Aaron. I'm coming to you from Childsburg, a lovely community just on the Fayette County growth boundary. So I'm in Lexington. And my sign says, make them talk. Of course, a filibuster reference, as today they're discussing voting rights in our fair capital of Washington, D.C. All right, Kimberly, are you there?
Yes, I am. How is everyone?
Wonderful.
Great. So I'm here live in Louisville, Kentucky, of course, here in Jefferson County. And my protest sign says today that hashtag, it's time to get excited. It's time to get excited. We are now in 2022, Aaron, and we had a little bit of a break on elections and things of that nature in 2021. So now it's time to get excited, to get energetic and revved up. So it says hashtag time to get excited.
All right. I like that. That new year energy. Sure. We're in the back half of the first month now, but don't give up the hope. Don't give up the shiny new year energy. All right. And welcoming back to the show, Nate.
Why, hi there. Hey, folks. It's Nate Orshan here from Kitchen in My House here in lovely South Frankfort. And happy to be back in the show tonight. I guess I don't have a real protest sign, but if I did, it would say something like, hey, General Assembly, time to help Kentucky State University and help Kentucky. More on that later.
All right. I think more on that one later. Let's move into news of the week. What stories that we are covering? We got a couple, and I think Nate is kicking us off.
I am. So thanks very much. And this one is coming from a report from the Lexington Herald Leader and their excellent new reporter, Austin Horn. The article was just updated today, January 19th, 2022, and it's entitled, House Republicans and Governor Beshear each filed a budget plan. How are they different? Well, let me just read the first paragraph. Quote, Strong majorities in both chambers of the legislature all but ensure that Republican legislators have control over the state's budget for the next 2 years. Well, that's it, folks. Roll the credits, and thanks for tuning in. Even if Governor Beshear had personally saved the life of Senate Majority Leader Damon Thayer's kids, that still wouldn't be enough to get the Republican supermajority to give his budget a chance. And let's be fair. There are some areas where the proposed executive and legislative branches' budgets aren't that dramatically different. For example, both budgets would pay the same amount of money into the Kentucky Teachers Retirement System and into the Kentucky Retirement System. Both budgets would ensure that state troopers would get a $15,000 bump in pay, and both of the budgets also propose to give state employees a 6% increase, although the governor's budget makes it effective as of the 1st of May, while HB1 budget, that's the bill, makes it effective on each employee's start anniversary. Meh. But there are two areas where Governor Beshear and the legislature really differ. First of all, our state government is currently swimming in revenue, for the most part thanks to the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, also known as the COVID stimulus package that was passed on the federal level last year. The governor wants to use it mostly as it was intended, spending it for the good of the Commonwealth. The Republican-controlled legislature, not so much, or sometimes not as much. So let's take early childhood education. The governor's budget would pay for universal pre-K for kids who are 4 years old. The Republican-controlled legislature's budget? Nope. Even though there is ample evidence that pre-K education leads to lasting and measurable positive outcomes for the kids later in life, whether or not it helps them get better grades in elementary school. Then there's funding for college. The governor's budget would provide about $100 million more in each of the next 2 years than the Republican-controlled legislature's budget. I'll return to that point in a minute. And then there's the economic development. As reporter Austin Horn puts it, quote, Beshear's budget proposal includes massive spending on economic development in fiscal year 2023. He proposes $374 million to be spent in this area, most of it in one-time spending, which then levels off to $29 million in the next fiscal year. In comparison, the Republican-controlled legislature's budget for economic development, much lower, about $40 million a year in the next 2 fiscal years. Admittedly, you could point to things like the Brady Industries aluminum plant that never happened, for which we're still trying to claw back $15 million in state development money. And, you might be right to be skeptical. On the other hand, look at the amazing home run of last year's announcement that the Ford Motor Company would be building 2 next-gen electric vehicle plants or battery plants in Kentucky. As they say, it takes money to make money. Here is another huge difference. The Republican-controlled legislature is aiming for tax cuts. As Austin Horn puts it, quote, after years of talk, Republicans have said that reforming the state's tax code to take a smaller percentage of income tax from people's paychecks and more from sales tax is a concrete goal this session. Yes. So never mind that decades of evidence have proven that tax cuts for the wealthy don't really stimulate the economy, and that raising sales taxes, which force people with the least amount of money to pay proportionately more of their income, is as cruel as it is counterproductive to consumption, which the economy needs. Also, as our governor has pointed out, our economy is actually doing really well right now. So why mess with it by reducing government revenue? Unless you really think that the only use for government is to let you use as many firearms as you want to protect your family's fortified compound from people who might actually want your children to learn some real history. Okay, so to wrap it up, Governor Beshear wants to spend ARPA money on things like getting more economic development, universal pre-K, and more support for higher education. The Republican-controlled legislature wants to hold on to much, if not most, of that ARPA money and give Kentuckians a tax cut that will neither stimulate the economy long-term nor pay for government services that we all, especially the people in the lowest income brackets, need desperately. And speaking of desperately, if I can just take a little sidebar here, I know I've gone on too long, but this is important to me. As you know, Kit and I live here in Frankfurt, and our home is about a half mile from the Capitol building. It's about, over there. And we're about 1.5 miles from Kentucky State University that way, which is the Commonwealth's only historically Black college and university, HBCU. Long story short, the university woke up last year to find itself in the middle of a fiscal nightmare made by years of mismanagement and neglect. They got rid of what appears to be a corrupt president, and they're desperately planning to make changes to get themselves on an even keel, but they've told the legislature they need a one-time infusion of $23 million. So, take a guess. Whose budget is there to support our amazing HBCU, and guess whose budget is not?
Is that a hypothetical question, or should I answer that?
I think you know the answer.
All right. So
Governor
I was
Beshear
interested to
said-
hear in that report, Nate. That was great. Thank you. Just that point that here we are in a situation with, a lot of additional resources kind of ready to go, and the Republicans don't really want to spend it, and that what they really want to do is take this opportunity to cut income taxes and increase sales taxes, right? So like, how do you make our tax code more regressive? How do you make it like really go after poor people more?
Right?
That's how you do it. And it's a little shameful that here we are, a poor state. That's their first instinct in terms of tax reform. It's horrible.
Yep. Agreed.
I will say this, as far as it's concerned. I mean, as I say every week, none of this actually shocks me. This is a state very well known for trying to make everyone ignorant. That's why we are so low on the totem pole, considering all the states in this here United States of America, that we are we are in the 40s, guys. Like, this has been going on for quite some time. So when you're talking about pre-K, you're talking about anything educationally, there's going to always be that pushback with the Republicans. And you were talking about K-State being a historically Black university. I like to give a shout out to them, as well as the other historically Black university in Kentucky, which is Simmons Bible College, underneath the leadership of the Dr. Kevin Cosby of St. Stephen Baptist Church here in Louisville and E-Town, and some other places too. They're like really, really big, right? So that particular HBCU, and my daughter did go to one. She graduated from Howard University in DC.
Oh, yeah.
However, the National Baptist Convention just gave Simmons Bible College $1 million. So for a new facility, so they're building. So hopefully there can be private donations from other organizations and corporations to help with the educational lack that our lawmakers seem to want to continue.
That was a journey, Kimberly. That shout out to the other historically Black. That was yeah. So
did you all even know that we had another HBCU in Kentucky?
I knew.
Yeah, I was
It's
not
a
aware.
private,
knew.
it's a private school in
No.
Louisville. Well, I had to do a little research,
I think that was I think it's a really good point. I think the funding should come from kind of whoever's willing to stand up. But I think in a state institution like K-State, like, we should be there for them for sure. The thoroughbreds need those resources and need that support. And they've definitely had some, management challenges through the year, but they're looking to sort through that, and critically important to be supported at the state level. All right. So moving on to other good things the government should spend money on. I've got a story about cleaner water for Kentucky. Our Commonwealth has not done great in water systems providing for the populace. We've actually been ranked 10th worst in the nation in the past in terms of Clean Water Act violations, Safe Drinking Water Act violations for for the folks who are paying for those water systems. Obviously, Martin County has gotten a lot of attention through the past few years about how horrible their water system is and the impact of the coal industry on those water systems. We've had the McCoys from Martin County on a couple of times talking about different issues, including that drinking water issue there. And so now we are seeing, I think, some changes, right? So Governor Beshear is absolutely delivering for clean water for Kentucky. This week alone, nearly $1 million was awarded by Governor Beshear to support clean water programs. This was in Woodford County. Last month, they awarded $2.7 million to Scott and Harrison counties. These are part of over $50 million awarded so far, investing President Biden's American Rescue Act funds, which you just heard Nate mention. But these American Rescue Act funds are going to clean water. The governor's team is administering those funds. The overall budget is $250 million, which is very significant, and will do a lot to increase the quality of the water that's getting to ratepayers, to people. That doesn't include any resources from the infrastructure law, right? So the American Rescue Plan Act, was passed early on in the Biden administration, and then not too long ago, the infrastructure law was passed. That's the bipartisan infrastructure law, and that would deliver an additional $112 million to Kentucky. Those resources we primarily focused on removing lead and the forever chemicals, PFAS, which we have discussed in the past. Actually, Louisville is very high in PFAS in their drinking water. So that's industrial linked pollution exists in the Ohio River Valley and other areas. So there's a lot of work to do to make Kentucky's water safe and clean and reliable. But what we're seeing is a very historic investment in those water systems. And I wanted to say thank you. I wanted to point out that it's great to see government actually investing in the infrastructure that supports our people. And that's what you get. Remember, the American Rescue Act funds were not supported by a single Kentucky Republican. We did get some support of the bipartisan infrastructure law, but those American Rescue Act funds, which again is going $250 million in investments in clean water systems in Kentucky, not a single Republican supported it here in our state. So really important to keep our eye on the ball here. There's a lot of talk about the Biden administration not delivering. We mentioned, just how horrible the voting rights fight is. The fact that the Democrats can't get all on the same page. But why did the Democrats have to be on the entirely on the same page for voting acts? That's because not a single Republican will break ranks and support voting, right? Which used to be a bipartisan thing. So let's just keep our eye on the ball here of what's actually going on in DC, and that trickles down to Frankfort, and that trickles down to our drinking water. Literally trickles down. So really important stuff. And you got to remember who's actually delivering for the American people, for the people of our Commonwealth. And it's not the Republicans. Just put it point blank. It is not the Republicans. All right. So that's my story. Anyone want to comment on the clean water investments of the Biden administration or the Beshear administration?
I'm just happy that someone and an entire administration is concerned about Kentucky. We do not want to continue to have the water issues. I mean, isn't water like just a human right to have air and water and food? So these are the things that you have to survive. If your water is polluted, and you don't have the money or the means to get bottled water, and that's another story for another day because I'm a little suspect on that. But I just think it's a human right to have clean drinking water. And even though, okay, I might be sounding crazy and it's nothing new to you guys, but I just want to ask you guys a question. If we're so concerned about the drinking water and we go to the store, we buy all of these bottled waters, like 4 or 5 cases at a time. What about when we take our showers and stuff? Like, are you guys using bottled water to like rinse your mouth after you brush your teeth? Right. That's why it is so important to have clean water.
Right on. Right on. Yeah, no, clean water, and it's we need so much in the Commonwealth. We need to spend so much on these things that are so critical for life. So water, huge example, and thank you, Aaron, for doffing your cap for the governor for that. Broadband connectivity, I would add. If we're going to have people educated in the the way that people need to be educated these days, and in touch with one another and doing work that's not just like the lowest rung of the ladder, they need broadband. So stuff like that. These are exactly what government is needed to do when the private companies won't do it for us. So anyway,
Right.
yes.
And I focused on the clean water investments this week because some of those announcements are being made. There also is, as part of the Better Kentucky Plan, which again, those American Rescue Act funds are so critical. Better internet is a part of that. There's a big chunk of money that's being put aside to upgrade our Commonwealth's internet and make sure the broadband's available and affordable for all. Which you nailed it, Nate. You can't be an active participant in this economy, this society, without broadband. It is an absolute necessity. So, all right. So I think we've got now Kimberly. Turning to Kimberly, we have the news you need in under 5 minutes, and I am getting out my time.
Hold on.
Remember, folks, you can play this game at home. It's your stopwatch, ready?
I think Doug very well might be checking my math.
I think I might trust Dougie Fresh.
What is that even? What is that about?
I don't know. I just do.
Same technology.
I trust him more to be the timekeeper.
If he had a quicker finger.
I don't know what it is.
He doesn't have a horse in the race.
Well, I believe in his timekeeping, Aaron. I'm just saying. But I've been doing good, so I'm not going to complain, okay? So the first thing I want to talk about is MLK Day.
Yes.
First of all, I read a very, very good article concerning this. It's not MLK Day. MLK Day is a very much whitewashed rendition of who Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. was. During the time of his activism and prayers for our country and his complete passion for equality for all, he only had a 32% approval rating back then. Most people, especially the Republicans, would be, if he were to live today and do these things, they would absolutely hate him. They called him a communist, and whether people like it or not, Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. was a socialist. Yes, he was. Go look it up. We can't just get so involved in a couple of sentences in the I Have a Dream speech. We need to read the entire speech. And if you really want to know who Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. was, read his letters from Birmingham when he was in the jail. You will understand. So I know that the Republicans, they haven't read any of that. And some of our Democrat partners haven't read it either, because everybody wants to celebrate MLK Day. That's what they've put up, but actually it's nothing about Martin Luther King Jr. So there was a situation, most definitely, that has happened, and so many people have put things up concerning him. And one of the things I like to say, like Mitch, Rand Paul, Andy Barr, they all jumped on this one, whitewashing his legacy. And thankfully, we have Congressman John Yarmouth to help us with that. So he tweeted, and I agree with this, Congressman John Yarmouth, you are the bomb.com, because he said, if you can't honor Dr. King by supporting voting rights and the John Lewis Act, then at least do him the courtesy of shutting the hell up. Great words from a great man. So I also just want to go in really quick now into state lawmakers. They want to force Kentucky sports teams to play the national anthem. So this is coming from Representative Steve Sheldon. He's a Republican from Bowling Green, and Texas started this, and it's called the Star Spangled Banner Protection Act. He's always also it's inspired Florida lawmakers, so of course we know it was going to come here. Also, TSA compensates 3 times the amount of guns at the Louisville airport in 2021. So altogether in the state of Kentucky, there were 119 guns confiscated. But according to the Transportation Security Administration in Kentucky, 51 of those were at the Muhammad Ali Airport in Louisville. Also, just want to tell you real quick that the Kentucky Senate adopts the assisted living reforms. It's already passed the state Senate Tuesday. Senator Ralph Alvarado of Winchester, a Republican, he said that this was 2 years in the making. The bill establishes time between relicensure inspections at 24 months if providers didn't have a serious deficiency during the previous licensing. So it's talking about some new services, and hospice patients can stay in their assisted living. But also, if there are assisted living for dementia patients, the law is totally different. So we're going to keep our eyes on this bill as it goes back to the House. Now, McConnell announces a $465 million to come to Kentucky to complete the Kentucky Lock and Dam project. This money has been given to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and these funds were made available through the bipartisan infrastructure bill. And in the past, the lock contributed to a lot of shipping delays in Kentucky. And one thing that just came up that was a special report came up on my phone. Breonna Taylor's ex-boyfriend, Jamarcus Glover, is back in custody. He was facing some cocaine charges. He was on probation. He asked to go to Mississippi. He said he could get a job easier there. We don't know why he came back to Jefferson County here in Louisville, but he came back and there is no info on what he is charged with. But Jamarcus Glover, the one that started the domino effect of the Breonna Taylor murder, is in custody tonight in the Jefferson County Jail. So back to you, Aaron.
That was just to be clear. That was a bit over 5 minutes.
See, that's why I don't trust you.
Why?
See, that's no, it wasn't.
Last week you were under.
No,
Last week you were under.
No, it wasn't.
Last week you were under, and I
trust you.
that.
Nope. I'm gonna go back what Dougie Fresh says. That's just the whole deal. The nutshell.
Just the timer. I can't. Good stories, though. Important stories. Thank you for sharing them with us, Kimberly. Whether it's under or over 5 minutes, all information that we needed to know. So we're going to be talking soon with Bruce Maples, the publisher of Forward Kentucky. That was news of the week, by the way. We're wrapping up news of the week. That segment is done, and we're gonna get to our interview. But first, I wanted to say thanks. I just got an update from the Kentucky Civic Engagement Table, or KSET, about their response to the tornado disasters in Western Kentucky, because as we've mentioned since that happened, KSET, Hood of the Holler, the Black Leadership Action Coalition of Kentucky, and the Commonwealth Alliance have been fundraising to do kind of direct aid and support. They've raised over $365,000 to support grassroots organizations offering short-term, long-term direct aid in the region, and that support has already provided temporary housing to people, generators, water, food, medicine, gas cards, groceries, mortgage payments, and much more. We know that fund has been a critical source of funding for nonprofits on the ground. Many times the difference between families having shelter, food, or essentials or not. And we're going to continue to direct the funds raised over the next 6 months. So they're going to keep doing that work for the next 6 months, and that will build the capacity of grassroots nonprofits to provide that direct aid to remain capable of meeting the community needs as they emerge. So again, if you haven't donated yet, the needs remain. Please help. There's a link we'll be sharing. It's in the show notes. It's in the comments right now, I think. But please do make a donation. You might be wondering, why should I do that? There's that kind of Team Kentucky fund that raised millions. There's the Red Cross. There's FEMA. All those things are a little institution heavy. and require a lot of people quite frequently to jump through hoops. Not all of them, but some of them. They also miss communities in need. These are kind of BIPOC focused and led, grassroots focused and led, immigrant community focused and led entities that catch the folks who slip through the cracks. So again, I think it's really important to have those options. But thanks to anyone who has donated. That $365,000 is significant. And then anyone who hasn't but is thinking about it, please do so. All right, so we're going to move on now to our interview. Very excited to have with us Bruce Maples, who is as I said, the publisher of Forward Kentucky, which is really, I think, the progressive media hub for Kentucky, which is something we desperately need. And I'm really excited to chat with him tonight about his work and how folks can support it and how folks can get involved. Bruce, how are you this fine day?
I am good and glad to be on with you.
Excellent. So yeah, tell folks who maybe have not navigated to your website yet, tell folks a little bit about what Forward Kentucky is and maybe, why you started it.
Forward Kentucky is a media outlet, is the way that I put it, but basically it's a website with a whole bunch of accompanying parts. We have podcasts and video casts. We actually have a TikTok channel, which is kind of funny. We have obviously the website. We do newsletters. So it's generally all of that. The tagline is objective news, progressive policy. Objective news, effective policy, progressive commentary. So we do news, policy, and commentary. And then our other tagline is the progressive voice for Kentucky politics. So yes, we try to be the progressive voice, not the only one, but that's what we're focused on, is getting the progressive word out. But when we do news, we try to make it objective. We try to follow some good journalistic standards. And as a matter of fact, we're a member of the Kentucky Press Association. So that's a little bit about us. Why I started it is a longer story, but let's just say that I saw a gap here and thought it needed to be filled.
Absolutely. Yeah, I obviously concur. I think there's a real need in Kentucky for kind of more news resources, more news perspectives, especially progressive. Obviously, we're Progress Kentucky. We do a live stream podcast, so we're right there with you in terms of the value of doing that work. And I think we've got a horribly biased media ecosystem in our Commonwealth, right? If you listen to rural radio, if you look at what's going on the TV, there's definitely a right-wing bias in what a lot of people are listening to. And so I think it's really important that, sites like yours exist, Bruce. And, I think it's a small ecosystem that we're all in. We need to support one another for sure. So I'm excited to let people know that soon we'll be able to, you'll be able to find our podcast on your site. So if folks are going to Forward Kentucky, they'll be able to run across some of our things. And, I think we'll figure out a way to do some sort of a ad or teaser about your work so we can share that with our listeners from time to time as well. Just so, that rising tide, support everyone, make sure everyone knows. Right. I think, you guys have done a really good job of highlighting folks like, I think Barry Craig has been a frequent contributor.
Wonderful.
Amazing, great writer, really hard hitting, really funny, really historically grounded. He checks a lot of boxes, and we've had him on our show, and it was just a wonderful guest talking about the impact of the tornadoes on his home community. But he's also a labor guy too, and brings that labor perspective, which is so important. Right. In this, unfortunately, a right to work state. It's not as prominent as a view as we'd like to hear, for sure. But yeah, I think you also do a number of things to help give people tools to pay attention to what's going on in the legislature. You want to tell us a little bit about what you do there?
Sure. One of the main things that we do is that we have a bill tracker system that we support. And if you are a subscriber or a member on the site, you can come use the bill tracker to follow bills. And we will have a list of key legislation that we're paying attention to, and you'll be able to look at all of that. if you are a member, a paying member, you can have your own bill sheets and basically put together a list of bills that you care about and follow them using that. So we have that resource. There is also, we will eventually do a scorecard of all the legislators and how they have stood up to our positions on bills, and you'll be able to see which are the more progressive legislators and which are the less progressive, and so on and so forth. And finally, we have a page on our site called Resources that we are adding things to regularly. It has a number of reference things on it and so on and so forth. And again, if you're a member, a paying member, I'm going to do a webinar probably next week on the legislative process, explaining to people how bills move through Frankfurt and what some of these terms mean. So those are some of the things we do for people to help them understand what's going on. Plus, of course, the regular news and commentary and policy coverage.
I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot for one guy. How can people support Forward Kentucky or learn more about ways to get involved and get behind it?
There are 2-3 ways. We have 2 levels of membership or involvement. One is the subscriber level, which is free. If you go to the website and at the top there's a subscribe button, you click on that, you have a choice. You can get a free subscription, which is going to give you access to some content that the general public doesn't have, like the bill tracker. And you get a weekly newsletter talking about what's gone on that week and what stories we've posted and so on and so forth. Then there is a membership, which is $9 a month. And the members get all sorts of extra perks. Right now, we are doing every weekday morning, we do an update on the General Assembly that we send to all our members who ask for it. We're giving them access to the bill sheets. We did an Ask Me Anything session about a week ago with Jason Bailey of Kentucky Center for Economic Policy. That was well received and some great information there. So there's a lot of things that people can get if they come subscribe or become a member. In addition, you can follow us on all those channels. If you go to the website, there is a menu choice called Where to Follow Us. And if you go to that, it lists all the places that you can follow the work of Forward Kentucky, including our podcast and our YouTube channel and so on and so forth.
And TikTok? Is TikTok there?
TikTok is there. I do the TikToks right now. I would love to find some young adults who would be willing to do the TikToks for me. But I do them. And what's funny is that when I first started, I mean, I know something about TikTok, but it's not like I'm on there all the time. And I said in the very first episode, I'm not going to dance. This is not happening. And I had 2-3 people comment back, I think you should read the news while dancing. And I said, no, not going to happen. And then there was somebody who said, what's up with your music? Because I know everybody uses dance music and hip hop and whatever. I use classical music. So my music for TikTok is a classical excerpt. And now if you correctly name what I played, I'll call you out on the next TikTok. So yeah, I'm having some fun with that.
That's wonderful. And so, Nate, do you have a question for Bruce or anything you want to learn about Forward Kentucky?
Yeah, I feel like I should know this answer, but have you gotten into sort of any kind of like advocacy emails where you'll push your subscribers to actually call the legislature to about particular bills? Is that something that you? Okay, cool.
Yeah, we have a action calls to action occasionally. I try not to overuse that because people sign up for a weekly newsletter. They don't necessarily expect to get a whole bunch of action emails. Yeah. But I have done it, particularly for certain bills that I think are critical and the week they're going to be heard or the day they're going to be heard. So yes, I have done that. Of course, we depend on other groups and other individuals across the state to provide us with information. So, for example, there was a rally in Frankfurt about the CRT bills. We posted a story on the site. And anytime we do one of those, it's called Event. Has an event title on it. And we put all the details up about here's the event. If you want to go, here's how you go. So yes, we've done that quite a bit. We lost one contributor, Nick Lacey, who's a professional photographer who lived in Danville, and he would go cover events for us. And some of his work was just so phenomenal, but his wife took a job in Boston, I think. And so he's moved and can't cover for us anymore. But yes, so we do that. We both promote events and we go cover the events.
Oh yeah, Nick actually came to one of our, I think, Moscow Mitch Monday protests, and some of the best picks of any of our events by far, for sure. So it's a bummer that you've lost that. So yeah, folks want to take pictures. If folks have a journalism instinct and want to help out, I'm assuming that you'd be open to the conversation. And I think the more contributors, the better. The more we can kind of feed your site to then feed the ecosystem, I think the better off we'll all be.
Yeah, at one point in the first 3 or 4 years, I was paying our regular contributors, and I stopped doing that. And I hated that I stopped it. I mean, I really did, because I wasn't paying them enough anyway. But it was a case of financial, it's like I have supported this out of my retirement. And so, at some point you go, I'd like to have enough money to live to be older. So I stopped paying them. But the other thing that has happened is we have people now who contribute. Of course, Barry writes, for us, but we have people who send in articles, and if they're on point, I'll edit them and put them up. Sure. So yes, we've picked up some contributors that way as well. And I want to call out one thing. You were talking about how to support the site. I really am pleased with how our podcast is going. I was trying to do a weekly podcast, and lately I have been doing it whenever something comes up and I can line up the interview. So like I think it was last week, we did 4 podcasts in 1 week. So I would encourage everybody to go follow us on their podcast app, because there's some good content out there. We had a great interview with Josh Douglas about the redistricting maps and why they're not legal. So that's an example. So I really would like people to go do that, in addition to going to the site and signing up.
Yep. And you had Dee Pregliasco on from the League of Women Voters, who we have had on before as well. And some really good stuff there for sure. So yeah, everyone go check them out. Go follow them. If you're on our if you're listening to this as a podcast, whatever platform you're on, Forward Kentucky is probably on it. What's the name of the podcast?
Moving Kentucky Forward.
Moving Kentucky Forward. We all concur. That's something. What are you, as you're doing this work, Bruce, and clearly, as Doug wonders, when do you sleep? Because you clearly are putting a lot of time and energy into this work. But what's the outcome you want to see? Like, why are you putting so much time and energy in here? What's the goal, and how do you feel that Forward Kentucky is helping you achieve that goal?
Okay, something froze up on somebody's end, so repeat the question there.
Oh, sorry. So, as Doug notes, you clearly don't have time to sleep. So, what is your motivation to do this work? Where do you think you're going? What's the end result you're seeking?
I started out with one goal, and moved to another goal. I started out actually thinking about building an organization, and then Adam Edlin started the New Kentucky Project and basically took that idea, himself. And I switched to this journalism idea and website idea. And then when I started it in 2016, roughly, I said, I'll go 4 years. And so after the 2020 election, I tried to.
Nope. I'm getting a little bit of internet hiccups.
Keep doing this. This is valuable. We need this. So my reason for doing it is that I said this in a meeting the other day. I think back to the Bradens, the civil rights pioneers in Louisville, and the fact that they spent 40, 50 years working on civil rights and didn't necessarily see progress every year, every 2 years. And I'm just thinking that I'm doing this because I want to see this state become more educated, more progressive. I want to see progressives and Democrats feel like they have a voice. And so that's why I do it. Will I do it forever? No, I won't. But at this point, this is what I do. And if the thing grows far enough, talking about time, maybe we could eventually actually hire staff. That would be really nice. But at the moment, it's just me doing it because it's what I do.
Well, let me just say, give you a hearty thank you for the work. I know that that's not something that, happens a lot these days, but I just want to, we need more voices carrying progressive information and messages, and because the work is so significantly kind of outgunned. Looking at the legislature, obviously it's hard to be hopeful when you've got this GOP party that is super majorities in both houses, doesn't seem terribly tethered to reality. And is part of this, a dumbing down of the grand old party that is absolutely kind of divorcing itself from its conservative roots and just, full tilt in the culture wars, as their kind of rallying cry is like owning libs is kind of what they exist to do, which seems a little bit weird. But at any rate, that's my soapbox, not yours. But I wanted to just say again, thank you for the work and thank you for coming on the show and sharing your view and your information and your tools with our community, because I think it's really important stuff that people need to utilize. Oh, and then Doug is noting that you actually have a tip line. So if you want people to, if people want to call in on something, they can actually just call you, go old school, and leave a tip on a news issue or political matter. I want to see Forward Kentucky break some political scandals. That's what I'd like to see. I think scandals are always good to take down your opponents. Let's try to find some.
The problem with that is that the very first thing in our tagline is objective news. And so we don't do clickbait and we don't do rumors, although I get rumors. I mean, I'm telling you, people do send me stuff and I'm like, well, how can I back this up? How can I check this out? So on and so forth. And there's not always a way. Sometimes there is a way. I called one person who was thinking about running for a major office, and I had been given this person's name by somebody, and I called this person up and this person said, how did you find out that I was thinking about this? And I said, well, I was given a tip by somebody. Well, who gave it to you? And I said, wait a minute. I protect my sources. I'm not going to tell you who told me this. And he sort of chuckled and he said, okay, that's the answer I was expecting. So yeah, if you send me stuff, I can't always use it, but sometimes I can. So yes, send it on.
Excellent. Here's your source. Get information out to him. We absolutely need to share this news when fact-based, of course, fact-based. It's, we're the kernels of truth over here. We're not the kernels of mistruth. I feel like that's well covered on the other side. Do although, as I've said, misquoting Stephen Colbert, I do believe that reality has a liberal bias.
Yes, I agree. And what's interesting is, and I don't know if you want to get into any of the legislature stuff or not, Robert Connie was on our podcast and he was talking about the redistricting. And he said, it's interesting that over time, the demographics are still working against the Republican Party. And even if they put Democrats in all sorts of districts, over time, some of these districts are going to become more Democratic. Young people are going to become more Democratic. And they may be biting themselves in the butt by doing this redistricting this way. They took one district that had a bunch of Democrats and they put them in two districts. Well, now maybe they lose two districts instead of one. I do think it has a liberal bias. I think that what even more than liberal bias, what I like to say is that we have choices about whether we're going to be people who love community or people who love hate. I guess that's the best way to put it. People say, well, I'm a libertarian. Well, I'll tell you what I am. I'm a communitarian. We're all in this together. And if we don't do it well, then we're making it worse for our children, our grandchildren, for each other. That's what I'm looking for. Scott Peck wrote a book a bazillion years ago And he talked in there about, everybody knows his book about personal improvement, but he wrote another book called The Problem of Evil. And he basically started out by saying, I wasn't even sure that there was such a thing as evil, but having done counseling all these years, there is. And he was trying to figure out a definition for evil. And his daughter, young daughter, maybe 7 years old, said, what are you working so hard on? He said, I'm trying to come up with a definition of evil. And she said, oh, that's easy. It's just live spelled backwards. And I thought, that's it. Anything that takes life away from people, is wrong. And we have policies, frankly, on both sides of the aisle that take life away from people. And that's wrong. And so that's one of the things, that's the sort of a passion of mine, is trying to make policy that gives life.
Yeah, well, one of the things I like to say Progress Kentucky is committed to doing is making our Commonwealth more compassionate. And I think we are compassionate people, I think neighbor to neighbor, but in terms of our politics, it seems like we really aren't. And that's a problem. So yeah, I did want to just give you one, like if there's a bill you're looking at, or if there's any specific legislation that Forward Kentucky is committed to battling or supporting this general session, this long session, what do you got your eyes on?
Well, there's sort of three kinds of bills. So one is there's the crazy bills, and almost anything filed by Representative Maddox falls in that space. There's the anti-mask bills and the like was being talked about earlier, the make everybody play the national anthem. These are ridiculous bills. There are good bills, and they're not all Democratic bills. There are some Republican bills that are good bills. A couple of them passed today, as a matter of fact. The mental health as a permitted excuse for school bill passed today. So there are some of those. And then there are the bills that are mean. And one was filed today that I've got to go dig into and look at. Jason Nemes filed a bill making the bail project illegal, saying that you can't raise money to get people out of jail. Well, okay, Jason, if you feel that way, that's great. Well, what are you going to do about the cash bail problem if you're going to file this bill? There are other bills that you're aware of, the trans youth can't play sports bills. Those are the sort of things. And then there is, and these are the ones that really frustrate me. There are some bills that are massive. I mean, huge. They go on for pages, and they're complicated, and they're specific to an industry. So Alvarado has filed this bill about nursing homes. The summary alone is 2 pages long, I think. And it goes on and on and on. And I'm not an expert in nursing homes, and I don't see it getting any attention whatsoever. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody's dug into it, whatever. And so that always worries me. It's like, okay, is there something here that's for somebody? Is this specifically to benefit somebody? So yeah, there are some bills like that. Obviously, the redistricting bills are a train wreck. By the way, just before I came on, I saw that the governor had vetoed 2 of them. He did not veto the Senate redistricting yet, but the congressional and the House, he vetoed both of those. And of course, Osborne immediately responded by saying, well, we'll override his vetoes. Of course he will. There are lawsuits coming, so we all need to be ready for that. So this is what frustrates me about the GOP. I will look at a bill sponsored by a GOP person. For example, there's the requiring all-day kindergarten. There's a bill out there now making it part of statutory law for Kentucky that we have to have all-day kindergarten, and we have to fund it, right? That the state has to pay for it. That's a great bill. Good for them. I'm glad to see that happening. But you turn right around, just when I think the GOP has given me some belief that they might be reasonable, they turn around and file a bill that allows everybody to have a gun no matter what, and no matter where. You can have a gun everywhere. Well, so that's my frustration with the General Assembly. If you look at the bills, because I do every morning when I do the General Assembly update, I look at every bill that they've worked on. And some of them are very good. Some of them are just technical stuff. Like there's one out there right now about X-ray operators. And it's just some minor change with X-ray operators. But then there are some that just make you want to pull your hair out. And it's like, why are you doing this? Senate Bill 1, taking the power away from the SBDMs, is an obvious ploy to move all the power to the superintendent, which means you're moving all the power to the school boards, which means that's what they're going to focus on running for this next year is school boards. And that's how they're going to get their power. They don't need to do the CRT bills. They just need to take over the school boards. So, yeah, it's things like that make me want to throw something.
And that, of course, was an issue that we covered in depth last week when we had our guest on, Christina Trosper, with the Kentucky 120 United AFT folks. So if you missed that, she did a really good job of breaking down why that bill was problematic. You can listen to last week's episode and bring yourself up to speed. But Bruce, I did want to.
I'm wondering if you were talking about being content partners. We post Robert Connie and Jasmine Smith's podcast, My Old Kentucky Podcast. We post that on the site. It occurs to me that if we're going to start sharing each other's content, we might ought to get together and get a calendar, because I had Christina on 2 days ago. So, we're hitting the same people, bless their hearts. So.
Yeah, they're very giving of their time. Yes. I appreciate that for sure. I think we might want to think about that, coordinating some of our guests and if we're sharing that information out together. So, all right, I will just want to say any final thoughts before we close out our show, Bruce?
If you want to have a progressive voice in Kentucky, then support what we're doing. Go sign up. It's one thing to say, I wish we'd have more progressive stuff in Kentucky. Well, if you don't sign up for at least the free newsletter or you don't become a paying member, then I'm not sure I believe you. So that would be the thing, If we can make this thing big enough that it has clout, it already has some clout. I no longer have to explain who I am to legislators when I call them. Excellent. They know who I am. They know what we are. But I really would like to see more people sign up for the newsletter, which is free, and become paying members and get all those perks and really dig in, right? So that we can make a difference. I want this state to be better than it is. So we can do that together.
Amen. All right. Well, thank you again for your time and your energy and your great work. And yes, folks, sign up for Forward Kentucky. And we'll be talking to you soon. All right. Have a great week, Bruce. All right, so let's close out our show. A couple of quick things we want to do before I hand it off to Nate. But we are not messing around. Progress Kentucky needs you. I want to show you one thing really quickly. We're in the process of mailing out the What's Stopping Us Kentucky. We deserve a Commonwealth that works for all of us. These are postcards going out to 1,500 likely supporters, voters out in our Commonwealth who could help us throughout the bluegrass, espousing those kind of progressive views, getting more involved. We need your support to make that plan a reality, though. And with those 1,500 handwritten notes urging folks to take one of 2 important online actions, folks on that postcard are going to be asked to either stand with Andy, send a message to your lawmaker telling them to quit blocking Andy at every step and come together to move our Commonwealth forward, or folks will be asked to sign our petition to demand the Kentucky Medical Licensing Board investigate Senator Rand Paul's bad medical advice during this pandemic. We've all seen his ridiculous fights with Dr. Fauci. We know he's using his perceived medical expertise to confuse and misinform people about the pandemic, its cause, effective public health measures. He continues to fight on that one. So we need to fight back, right? So either need to stand with Andy or we need to investigate Dr. Paul, you personally online, you can take both actions. We'll share them in the comment, but we're going to ask folks to do that with these postcards. And then we're going to ask everyone who takes action on either campaign to volunteer with Progress Kentucky to join our door-to-door or our phone canvassing effort to help us determine the best, most powerful way to discuss economic issues with Kentucky voters, the voters that we're going to need to support progressive policies and politicians. If we're ever going to see a more compassionate Commonwealth, this organizing will be critical to persuade more people to vote for politicians who will stand against the GOP's anti-worker, anti-teacher, anti-public health, pro-corporate agenda, and to turn out those voters to win close elections. So please sign up right now to help out. So go to this bit.ly link that's in the comments, or it's in the show notes. Let us know what you can do. It doesn't take a ton of time, a little bit of time, a little bit of commitment to as I said, more compassionate Commonwealth. We'd love to put you to work. All right. So we also have a few of our friends' events to keep in mind coming up. Actually, on the 21st of January, the Kentucky Center for Economic Policy is holding their annual conference. If you want to get in the weeds of budgetary policy, or how policy is set, or how to be a great watchdog of Kentucky policy, come to this annual conference. It's virtual. It's free. We'll put a link in the comments or in the show notes. Also, Kentuckians for the Commonwealth is organizing their virtual lobby day for a healthy democracy. That's going to be Tuesday, January 25th. So just coming around the corner there. Also put that in the comments. And a fairness rally. So fairness rally day is Wednesday, February 16th at the Capitol. Rally for fairness. Show up and support our communities that way. So that's what we've got for you on our action and events calendar. And now I'm going to turn to my friend Nate to close us out.
Thanks, Aaron. Well, we're back next week at 7 p.m. Next Wednesday. We will be joined by Representative Sherilyn Stevenson from the 88th District, Aaron's representative, coming on to share with us firsthand what's going on in Frankfort. And don't you go anywhere, because you need to know that Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State, organized as a 501c4, is affiliated with the Indivisible Project and the Commonwealth Alliance Voter Engagement, otherwise known as CAVE. Progress Kentucky's goal is to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive agenda through civic engagement. Some graphic content has been provided by Couchfire Media. Couchfire ignites multi-camera live stream educational and commercial video production content. More production can be found on information can be found on couchfiremedia.com. Production this evening was by Annabelle Nagel, our own social media chair. Thank you so much for getting the kernels of truth out to the people, Annabelle. And we also want you to know about Kimberly's show. It's called The Jones Report. It is a weekly live national local news talk and conversation show that occurs every Sunday at 7 p.m. Is that still Sunday, 7 p.m.? Maybe. Hosted by Mike Breuer, Betsy Foster, and Kimberly Cecil Jones. It can be found on Facebook at The Jones Report Radio. Thank you, Nate. That would be me for the theme song. Do. You can find more information and music at natosongs.com, natosongs.com. And if you miss our weekly live stream on Facebook, don't you worry. You can always rewatch a show and see our source links on Facebook. Just go to search, of course, for Progress Kentucky. Or audio podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. So for Progress Kentucky, this is Nate Orshan saying, "Oh, do I have to do more? I think I'm all set." I don't know how to read things. This is Nate Orshan saying, "Be well, be safe, and help make Kentucky more progressive." There was more I had to say, wasn't there? No?